Hey, good morning, folks. Appreciate you guys joining us this morning. I'm Jerry Prejean, Chair of the National Board of Trustees, and I welcome you to the 2021 AMIkids Board of Trustees virtual call. Appreciate you joining. Just as we do with every other meeting, we'll start with a pledge, and then we'll have a student speaker will follow.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Bow your heads for our prayer.
We gather here today with the goal of doing good work for our youth and their families.
We ask that today is blessed with the chances to grow with friendships and a sense of community.
May our efforts be blessed with insight, guided by understanding and wisdom.
Teach us that even if we can do great things, we can at least do small things in a great way. May we always be sincere in the efforts to help others in need. Of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Bow your heads for our prayer.
We gather here today with the goal of doing good work for our youth and their families.
We ask that today is blessed with the chances to grow with friendships and a sense of community.
May our efforts be blessed with insight, guided by understanding and wisdom.
Teach us that even if we can do great things, we can at least do small things in a great way. May we always be sincere in the efforts to help others in need.
May our personal faith give us strength to continue the work we have begun.
As we go forward from today, may our gratitude unite us in the desire of all that we are and all that we have for the common good, so that reasons to be thankful will fill every life. Amen.
Thank you, AMIkids Tampa, providing the pledge and the invocation. Next, we'll move on to a student speaker. I'd like to introduce Kip Luster, is a former student and high school graduate from 2006 AMIkids Emerald Coast. He has certainly overcome many obstacles in his life, which he says makes him the man he is today. Kip is currently the founder of Streets to Fitness, a fitness regimen that he's introduced to AMIkids programs and Florida detention centers. He is a master fitness trainer with over 103,000 followers on Instagram and Facebook. He's also interviewed. He was also interviewed in Forbes magazine. His passion is to help at-risk teens find another outlet through fitness and to gain control of their lives and build confidence. His speech today talks about his journey and his immense drive to helping at-risk teens. Please help me in welcoming Kip to the platform.
Hello, everyone. My name is Kip Luster, the CEO of Streets to Fitness and the founder of Streets to Fitness Foundation for Juvenile Justice Reform. My mom died when I was 1, shortly after she graduated from Georgetown University. I was adopted by my great aunt in Fort Walton Beach, Florida, where I was raised. Unfortunately, she was poor lived in a poverty neighborhood, drug-infested neighborhood, a lot of crime activity. And my dad, he's been in prison my entire life. By the time I was 12, I started looking for ways to provide for myself. Unfortunately, I picked up a lot of bad habits hanging out in a bad neighborhood where I was raised at. And I started selling drugs. By the time I was 14, I was in and out of the juvenile detention center in Crestview, Florida, Okaloosa County Detention Center. Back in 2006, I was court ordered by a judge to attend Emerald Coast Marine Institution to finish school and get my high school diploma. That's where I met Miss Maria. Miss Maria taught me a lot of things. One of the main things that sticks out the most to me is gravitate to positive people and positive things. You can't mix negative with positive. That's why I fell short in life. I was always hanging out with the wrong crowd, negative people, negative environment. Another thing that Miss Maria taught us was discipline at a young age. Every morning, she made us read the creed. I am my own person. I am a unique and special person. There will never again be someone just like me. To this day, that's embedded in my heart. I completed ECMI, but unfortunately, I didn't change my behavior. 6 months later, I was in a juvenile program, OYDC, Crestview, Florida. In the beginning of my sentence, I started working out. I was so determined to change my mindset. I knew if I could change my mindset, I'll change my life. Started working out. I created a daily routine, started reading my Bible. I was trying to become a better version of myself, mentally, physically, and spiritually. A year into my workout routine, I realized I discovered my passion for fitness, and I was determined to become a certified personal trainer. While working at Exogen, I created my own brand, Streets to Fitness, and I created Streets to Fitness Foundation for juvenile justice reform. I'm passionate about helping young kids get their lives on the right track, kids that's traveling down that same road that I once traveled. With the right mindset and the right discipline, the right structure that can help them change their irrational thinking, they can get their lives on the right track. I created a 21-day exercise curriculum and a daily planner for at-risk youth and incarcerated juveniles. I'm currently working with Okaloosa County Juvenile Detention Center and Escambia Regional Juvenile Detention Center. That's two detention centers that I'm working with, and I'm working with AMIkids, Boys Base, Pensacola, Daytona, Volusia, and Melbourne, Florida, Space Coast. I look forward to working with more. Streets to Fitness is a brand that's bringing physical fitness to underserved communities and at-risk youth that can help them develop habits like discipline, determination, self-confidence, and perseverance to keep going through their trials and tribulations and help propel them to success. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to work with AMIkids. It's a pleasure to be a partner with you guys.
Kip, thank you so much. Enjoyed hearing your talk and continue the great work and look forward to getting your program throughout all of our organizations. So next we'll move on to, I think Tabitha sent you guys the meeting minutes from our last BOT meeting. I will now call for a motion to approve the BOT 2020 minutes that were emailed to you. And you will see a pop-up on the screen which will allow you to vote, approve or deny. And once we get the proper votes, we will move the motion forward. So look for your screen and look for the pop-up to either accept, approve, or deny the motion. It looks like we got a motion from Brad. Do I have a second? And
Got a first and a second.
so we do have a first and a second. And we're waiting on the vote. Brenda is the person that made that second. Okay, it looks like we've got a full vote and the motion passes. Thank you, guys. Next, we'll move into the chair's report. And first of all, I really wanted to acknowledge and thank our sponsors. Our title sponsor for this event is MGT Consulting. Also sponsoring is Emmy Wilson. And we also have the Hill Ward Henderson, as well as Marsh McLennan Agency, the Bouchard Insurance Group. All those have been great sponsors and underwrote our event today. So thank these sponsors, and we really appreciate that. Next, I'd like to go ahead and introduce the AMIkids Executive Committee members. And of course, we'll start out with me, Jerry Prejean, National Chair, and I'm affiliated with AMIkids Acadiana. And then next is Dr. Brenda Burkett, immediate past chair with AMIkids Baton Rouge. And Mr. Justin Day is the incoming chair with AMIkids Tampa. Amy Deathridge, chair of the audit committee, which is AMIkids Sandoval. And Brad Robb, chair of budget and finance with AMIkids Space Coast. Mark Kreiser, chair of the foundation and affiliated with AMIkids Tampa. And Mike Newstrom, chair of program development with AMIkids Acadiana. Miss Nancy Lohr, chair of strategic planning, AMIkids at Large. Mr. Nick Porter, AMIkids at Large. Mimi Methan, AMIkids Acadiana. Charlie Noonan, AMIkids Emerald Coast. And of course, our CEO, Mr. Mike Thornton, President and CEO, and a non-voting member of the executive committee. Guys, I just wanted to say a couple of things before we get started. One, I certainly look forward to hosting another BOT virtual. I can't start out without acknowledging, our board and particularly our staff for the support they have and support for the mission and for the youth that we serve. The program has been extremely responsive to the challenging times, and I certainly appreciate the efforts that they've done to kind of keep us on track. As you guys know, this is a scaled back BOT. I'm certainly, remiss in that we're not getting together as a family and break bread and have all the fun things we normally do at a BOT. But I think hopefully at the end of the day, you'll get a lot out of which we've done at the BOT. And hopefully, in preparing this, I really thought about, with 2 years of doing virtual, there's several folks on this call that probably have not experienced a live BOT. So what I wanted to share is, and hopefully the takeaways is that we'll learn about the business conducted over the past year. We'll hear successes of organizations even through these difficult times, and we learn about new programs and services that are being offered to our youth. We'll also hear, which really, charges my battery, hear from the youth that we serve and how we have changed the trajectory of their lives. And I think that is the most moving part of the BOTs, is hearing the kids speak and how this has really changed their lives. And then we will welcome new leadership. We'll have, this is the end of my term after this meeting, and we'll introduce the next group of leaders. This afternoon session will focus on recognizing organizations and individuals who have moved the needle for our organization. Hopefully, at the end of the day, we can learn best practices and take some of those home and implement those at our local organization. So I welcome you to the BOT, and we'll get started. Next on the agenda is I'll introduce Mike Thornton, our CEO, for the CEO report. Mike?
Thank you, Jerry. Just want to thank everyone for participating today. I know this is definitely not the norm. Even though we did it last year, we would much rather, as Jerry said, be face to face and getting to do the things that we normally do at a BOT meeting. And part of that is the relationship building. It's a most important part of what we do with our kids, and it's very, very important that we do that with our board members. And so we're hopeful that next year we will not be having to do this virtually. But I want to thank all of you for staying with the organization throughout this time of this pandemic, and just being supportive. We've made some obviously some strides during this last year, but we've also had a lot of challenges. And our biggest challenge has been dealing with COVID. An example would be when it first started a year and a half ago, we had one staff member hospitalized. Since August, we've had 15 staff members that have been hospitalized because of COVID. And so that's a dramatic change. We've had to make some pivots, like changing this meeting, but we've also experienced some losses. Deborah Bowman from our AMIkids Clay program, passed away because of COVID. Xavier George from our AMIkids Jacksonville program passed away because of COVID. And the reason I want to say their names is that I think it's important that we understand that the impact of this pandemic is real. It really affects real people, and it affected those kids. It affected that staff, and it affected, more importantly, their families to lose someone because of what's going on. So us as an organization, we've had to take some steps. We had to falling short of mandating because of our state contracts and the things that we do. But we are strongly encouraging staff to get vaccinated. And I just encourage all of us to make sure that we're thinking of our families and get vaccinated. And because this is obviously very serious, please keep their families, Deborah and Xavier's family, in your prayers and in your thoughts. I want to talk a little bit about one of our initiatives that really started under Jerry, about board engagement and really focusing on the things that we can do to help our boards be, more engaged and give them the tools they need to be effective. And we're going to continue that this year. Justin Day, who's coming in as the new chair, that's one of his platforms, is talking about board engagement. And so we've done, last year we did some virtual trainings for our board members that was well received and well attended. Feedback on those trainings were very, very good. We're going to do the same thing after this BOT. So we're going to do a series for a year, and that will be coming out in the next couple of weeks. So every other month or so, we'll be doing different trainings to help with board engagement, to cover some of the topics that we would normally have covered at this BOT that we weren't able to do this time, and give all board members, a chance to participate and hear about the things that are going on and the things that could help them and their boards be more engaged. So we're really excited about that series. Today, we're going to have the opportunity to hear from our leadership team. As a part of those reports, they're going to talk about their strategic initiatives, and they're going to talk about other things that are going on in their area, in their departments, and give us just an update of those processes. The strategic plan, we're entering our 5th year. We just completed our 4th year of our 5-year strategic plan. A lot of work went into this. The plan was originally developed with input from all of our stakeholders, from our staff, from our kids, from our families. And so a lot went into developing this plan. So this is the final year of our strategic plan. And today you're going to hear an update from year 4. And so we're gonna go through that. I'm gonna start it off with talking about our first organizational goal. And the organizational goal that I want to talk about is our PQI, Performance Quality Improvement. It was led by Dr. Amy Bradshaw Hoppick, and the concept was to take our compliance and our quality of the organization, not just from one department, but to ingrain it throughout the entire organization. And Amy allowed us to really, come up with a structure that's going to help us moving forward. We had committees, subcommittees that were working on various parts of the organization, like training and looking at client records and different portions of how we do our business. But another thing that we implemented was stakeholder surveys. Now, we usually do an annual survey, but as a part of this, we've been doing quarterly surveys. That feedback is to help us improve the quality of the services that we're providing. And so that's been very important. And as we went through this initiative, we realized very quickly, Amy, who wears many hats for the organization, that we needed someone to actually lead this initiative. And so we were honored to hire Heather Bowler. Heather hails from Kansas, and she's joined us, and she's the new lead for this initiative. And we're really excited about that. I wanted to mention, before I go to the next, a couple of organizational changes with our leadership team. We have hired a new Vice President of Resource Development, Brian Lepasic. Brian comes from Chicago area, and we're honored to have him. He's been with us about 6 months. And we created a new position, our Chief People and Culture Officer. And we just call her Chief. But Angie Hastings, who's been with the organization almost 30 years, was promoted to this position, and we're really excited about that. And the reason that we chose to go in that direction really was to focus on those two areas, our people and the culture in our programs. Very important, and that is really the secret sauce into how we, impact the lives of our kids. So we're really excited about them. You'll hear them for the first time a part of this meeting. So just want to congratulate them and welcome them to the team, to the leadership team. One of the exciting initiatives that we had, really exciting, was the Breaking Barriers initiative. And if you think back, initially 3 or 4 years ago, we did Breaking Barriers was a connection between law enforcement and our kids, getting them to break bread and have conversation. This year, we expanded that into the community. And so we had a chance to do community forums where our kids had a chance to talk with community leaders about issues that they are concerned about and have an open discussion. And Dr. Jessica Mitchell really led us down this path and had done a great job with working with the team who was involved with this, but it's really exciting. So the kids got a chance to talk about things like perception, their own experiences, the success for how to be successful, and talk about things that were important to them. We're going to continue this next year. We're going to expand, looking at not globally, but we're going to do work with another program this year. We work with AMIkids Tampa. We want to expand to Orlando. We have some partnerships, natural community partners that is going to help us get that started, because we're still fine-tuning the curriculum. We're fine-tuning the curriculum so we can roll it out to all of our programs. But a part of this initiative, we also provided training for our staff in dealing with diversity and justice and inclusion and equity. And that was very important. And so that's a part of this whole initiative that we're doing with Breaking Barriers. And it's been a very positive one, and we want to continue it. And we think it's something that's going to help us as an organization going forward. We are in the process of completing our second IT project. We started with our kids information system, and now we're doing our human resources system. And later this year, we will be working on our finance system. But we're about 70% complete with our HR system. The biggest change that we just went through, or we're in the process of going through, is we went from a bi-monthly pay to bi-weekly pay, which is a huge deal. But the staff have been very receptive to that change. We're really excited about the way the process is going. This shows some of the things that we've been implementing, and you see that we are almost at the stage of testing, and then testing goes into deploy. So we're in a good place with a lot of things, and we have a team led by Marie Haskins, and obviously our IT guru Richard, and Devin Simon, who have really been leading the way on this. But we really appreciate their work, and it is going to help us be more effective with our staff as far as how they get paid, their benefits, and give them the ability to look at some of their information. So we're really excited about that. Another thing that we accomplished this year, and Dr. Mitchell and the data department did this, was create an impact report. You know, we do an annual recidivism report, which is a major part of the BOT. We have a couple of workshops that deal with that, and we will have workshops this year in that series that deal with recidivism. So you'll get a chance to see that outcomes and outputs report. But we did an impact report and said, okay, what is the difference we're making now? You know, what are the things that we're doing now to help kids? What's working, what's not working? And we're really excited. We went into it thinking we would get one done. So we did one for 2019, and then we ended up doing one for 2020. It's going to be in your chat, so you can take a look at that report. So if you click on it, you can take a look at that report. And that concludes my report for today. But please pay attention to the different presenters. We're going to have some great information and some great things, even though it's a very challenging year. But thank you guys all for your support.
Okay, thank you, Mike. I appreciate that report. Next up, we'll like to introduce Brad Robb, Chair of Budget and Finance Committee, and Maria Porto Duarte, AMIkids CFO, for the Budget and Finance Committee report.
Okay. Everyone, like Mike said, I thought this would have been better with having you all in the room and speaking to you one-on-one and side conversations later. But I don't see my slides. So, like I said, welcome everyone. Today's presentation will include summarized financial results as presented in our draft audited financial statements for the fiscal year ended June 30, 2021, as well as a high-level summary of AMIkids Inc. budget, the Home Office, for fiscal year 2022. A copy of the detailed draft audited financial statements are included in the chat for you to download at your convenience. Please note that this is a draft and the final numbers may change from what is presented. So, without further ado, let's see how we did in fiscal year 21. This slide is a snapshot of the revenue for a 5-year period from fiscal 17 to fiscal 21. Fiscal 21 came in at $79 million, which is up by $2.9 million from fiscal 20. The next slides will break out this flux into the AMIkids organizational components. And when you look at the biggest change there from 17 to 18 was when our Florida legislative dollars went up by $2 million and our boat revenue also did. This slide breaks out the flux of revenue from fiscal year 20 to 21. So revenue went up by 2.9 million in between the 2 years. Our program revenue went up, depicted by the orange bar, went up by 2.6 million. Foundation revenues went up by 1.3 million, and that's depicted by the green bar. And AMIkids home office, including the boatyard, revenues went down by 1.1 million, mostly driven by change in revenue in the boatyard. So when we look at this slide, we've just had our revenues. So where did we spend our money? If we exclude our boat program expenses and just look at expenses between our programs and AMIkids home office, 89% of our expenses are spent on program services, 11% on administration, and less than 1% was spent on fundraising. This is a snapshot of our net asset change for a 5-year period from fiscal 17 to fiscal 21. Fiscal 21 came in at a 9.6 million, an increase of 3.7 million from fiscal 20. As with the revenues flux earlier, net asset change follows the boat program for 17 to 20, and the net asset change for fiscal year 21 is broken out into the organizational components in the next slide. As depicted in the previous slide, the combined net asset change was 9.6 million. This slide breaks out the net asset change into the organizational components. The gray bar on the left splits out the one-time effects at the programs of the PPP Payroll Protection Program loan forgiveness and the gains on disposal of properties in AMIkids Pinellas and AMIkids Panama City. The continuing operations for the programs depicted by the orange bar reflects a net asset deficit of 1.1 million. The AMIkids Foundation, the green bar, reflects a gain of 2.2 million as a result of contributions received that were directed to the AMIkids endowment of 0.5 million. The balance will be distributed in future fiscal years to the greater AMIkids group. The blue bar represents AMIkids home office, including the boat program, which came in with a $4.7 million gain. This slide indicates our combined cash and debt of the group. The first cluster of columns on the left reflects cash and investments. The gray bar reflects fiscal 19, the blue bar is fiscal 20, and the orange bar is fiscal 21. So on the left cluster, cash and investments are up from fiscal 20 by 6.9 million and is a combination of the group's excellent results for fiscal 21 as well as increased deferred revenues of 2.4 million in fiscal 21. Deferred revenue represents payments received in advance for services not yet provided. This money has not been earned and thus can't be reported on the statement of activities, and one of the reasons why cash has gone up. The second cluster on the right represents debt for the same periods as for cash and investments, and debt is slightly down as a result of mortgage repayments and slightly lower balances on our lines of credit. So a good graph for any entity as cash is up and debt is down. Our next slides will talk about our fiscal year 22 combined budget at the beginning, and then we'll go on to the AMIkids home office budget, including the boat program. Combined revenue is remaining relatively flat when compared to fiscal 21, and the orange bar reflects a budget of 78.5 million for fiscal 22. The flux is a combination of decreases in revenue associated with the one-time items mentioned earlier regarding PPP loan forgiveness and one-time property disposals that occurred in fiscal 21, which are not expected to occur in fiscal 22. These decreases are countered by increases in revenue associated with the assumption that enrollment will be returning back to normal in fiscal 22, as well as new program revenues in New Mexico and South Carolina. The combined budget for fiscal 22 as a net asset change reflects a deficit of 0.4 million. Programs, the orange bar, have a combined 1.4 million budgeted deficit for fiscal 22. These budgets are approved at the local board level, and they may change from what is depicted here. The foundation is budgeted at break-even, so you don't see a bar, as most of their revenue is earmarked for distribution to the AMIkids group. The timing of revenues and distributions varies year on year, and distributions to the greater AMIkids group have a zero impact on the combined net asset change. And the blue bar represents AMIkids, the home office, including the boat program, and we have budgeted for a $1 million gain in fiscal 22. What follows is the fiscal 22 budget for AMIkids home office, including the boatyard. The gray columns reflect the fiscal 21 budget. The light blue columns reflect fiscal 21 actual and compares it to the gray bar, the budget, and the orange columns reflect the fiscal 22 budget. The first cluster of columns on the left reflects AMIkids non-boat revenues, which are expected to increase from fiscal 21 budget and actual results to 10.3 million. This is a reflection of increased state contract revenue due to higher enrollment and new programs in New Mexico and South Carolina. Non-state revenues are also increasing due to increases in federal grants and fundraising. The second cluster, middle cluster, of columns represents boat program revenue, which is expected to decrease by 4.9 million from actual results and is an increase from budgeted revenues in fiscal 21, and we are budgeting for that to be in at 16.4 million. Cash donations, and this is as a result of boat lease revenues expected to increase from 2.1 million. Cash donations from boat donors are also expected to increase. And the third cluster of columns is a combination of the first two to reflect AMIkids Inc. home office total revenues at 26.7 million budget. As with the previous slide, the gray columns reflect fiscal year 21 budget, the blue columns fiscal year 21 actual, and the orange column fiscal year 22 budget. The first cluster of columns reflect, and this is for net asset change in millions. The first cluster of columns on the left reflects AMIkids non-boat net asset change, which is remaining flat for all three periods at a $0.5 million deficit. The second cluster of columns represent the boat program, which is budgeted at normal levels for the boat program since the prior 2 years have been unusually and happily very good years, and so we're bringing it back to normal. And the third cluster of columns reflects AMIkids total budgeted net asset change, which is a 1 million budget net asset change. This slide analyzes the expenses for non-boat operations. AMIkids Home Office provides services to the AMIkids programs so that our programs can focus on serving our kids. We do this with our team members, and over 71% of home office costs are directed to staff compensation and benefits, the orange slice. The blue slice depicts the 11% of home office costs that is spent on travel and conferences, which obviously direct support the programs too. The gray slice reflects the 9% of home office costs that are professional fees. These professional fees are in support of increasing program revenues and providing legal and other services. And the balance of home office costs are occupancy, insurance, interest, and other expenses. The AMIkids budget, capital budget, it's 0.7 million. Mike made mention of our finance system, and the blue slice represents the expenses that we expect to spend on the finance system, about 400,000 in the current year, upcoming year. There's an IT and equipment refresh, which is represented at the Home Office by the 16% of the Home Office IT equipment. And the boat program, which is the orange slice, is doing some major facility maintenance at the boat program. This concludes my presentation. Ordinarily, we would have had a workshop to address any questions that you may have had. And since this is not possible in this virtual environment, please feel free to reach out to me if you have any questions or want any details. Thank you so much for your continued support during these most unusual times.
Hi, my name is Brad Robb, and I'm the chairman of the AMIkids Budget and Finance Committee. I want to take a moment to walk you through the process that we engage in throughout the year. We take our duties very seriously. We understand the fiduciary responsibility that we have to our partners and to our stakeholders. Now, this morning, our Chief Financial Officer, Maria Porta Duarte, presented the 2021 and 2022 AMIkids Inc. budget, as well as the AMIkids capital budget. Now, as you'd expect, the budget process, now perhaps more than ever, is a long process that requires constant attention. I want to take a moment to thank Maria and her team for their tireless year-round efforts to ensure that the budgets as presented to you today are as complete and accurate as possible. So throughout the year, Maria and I meet regularly to discuss our budget and compare our budget to the actual and forecasted results. These meetings provide me with an important perspective on how our budget is impacted throughout the year and the work that Maria and her team do to effectively manage through the inevitable ups and downs. The Budget and Finance Committee meets annually to walk through that same process. And once we are satisfied, the committee ultimately votes to approve the budgets. Maria and her team are available for questions, and they're always willing to provide additional information and perspective. Above all, we recognize that thorough and accurate forecasting and reporting is vital to the fiscal success and health of our organization. To that end, I have complete confidence in the team and the budget that they have produced. The budgets have been presented to the Budget and Finance Committee and they've been approved. And we believe that the budgets as presented are reasonable and fair. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Maria and Brad. Next, I'd like to introduce Amy Deathridge. Amy is the chair of the Audit Committee. Amy, would you mind giving us the Audit Committee report?
Hello and welcome to this year's Board of Trustees meeting. Thank you for being here. I will keep my Audit Committee report short so that we can move along to the next agenda item. This year's audit was a little bit challenging due to several circumstances. There were conflicting priorities, there were some staffing changes and vacancies. And in addition to that, we are undergoing a system implementation, converting our accounting system from DataPro to Sage Intacct. And so because of all those circumstances, the audit schedule slipped a few times. However, we were able to get the audit completed in time for the Board of Trustees meeting, as well as in time for filing our 990 tax returns. So there are three facets of the audit. The main audit, which is basically looking at the financial statement presentation to make sure that it's fair and reasonable and that they're prepared in accordance with generally acceptable accounting principles or GAAP. This year, again, we received an unmodified opinion, which is the highest opinion that we can receive. The second part of the audit had to do with a government audit. You may have heard this called a Yellow Book audit. This is required for any entity that receives government awards of any type. That audit went fine as well. And then the third facet of the audit is a single audit. This is required for any non-federal entity that receives more than $750,000 in federal award funds during the entity's fiscal year. And so AMIkids had to prepare what's called a SEFA, Schedule of Expenditures for Federal Awards. And unfortunately, we did have a finding during the audit of the SEFA. It was considered to be a significant deficiency. This had to do with the CRF, the Coronavirus Federal Relief Program. And in one of our programs, Panama City to be exact, the reports were submitted timely and they were compliant reports. However, we failed to demonstrate that there was any review or approval process conducted prior to filing those reports. Again, United Way did confirm that the reports were submitted timely and that they were fully compliant. It was just our inability to prove that they were reviewed and approved within AMIkids prior to them being filed. The audit committee and I agree that this isn't too much of a major concern as far as the future, because we will never have to file this type of report again. It was a one-time only CRF relief program, and therefore we don't share major concerns about this audit deficiency. So in addition, CRI reported to us that there will be some new accounting standards coming up, as well as some that were implemented during this fiscal year. Specifically, the presentation of revenue changed a little bit, and AMIkids has implemented those changes and is fully compliant. We are to expect changes to our lease accounting for the upcoming fiscal year 22. And Maria and her team will work with CRI to ensure that they are compliant with these new lease accounting changes. I'd like to report a particular footnote that will be included in this year's financial statements. It has to do with something called a going concern, which is basically looking for an entity's ability to meet its financial obligations for the next 12 months. One of our programs, Emerald Coast, caused some concern during the audit for a few reasons. Number one, they're in a negative net asset position. And number two, they really don't have any ongoing contracts that would support them. So because of those reasons, CRI felt that there was a significant level of doubt as to whether that program will be able to meet its financial obligations in the next 12 months. And so that was written in a footnote to the financial statements. Another significant area of note is the deferred revenue from the PPP program, which is the Paycheck Protection Program. As you recall, last year we had several of our affiliates who received PPP funds, and we recorded them conservatively as deferred revenue. This year, however, we did receive formal approval that we would be receiving full loan forgiveness, and so therefore those revenues were moved out of deferred revenue. There will still be some money in the deferred revenue, but this has to do with the second round of funding. 4 of our programs received funding from round 2, and so that money, for the same reason, will be recorded as deferred revenue until such time that we receive formal loan forgiveness. It is our belief that we will indeed receive formal loan forgiveness on this second round of funding as well. Maria and her team made a request of the audit committee to extend our current contract with CRI for another year. Their contract actually ended 2 years ago. Last year, we agreed to extend just because of all of the challenges that we faced with COVID. And this year, we were asked to extend that contract again, primarily because of the system implementation, which has really been quite challenging. And so the audit committee approved that unanimously. So we will be utilizing CRI for 1 more year. Then we had a report from our internal audit group headed by Mr. Bob Waters. He reported that 3 reports were completed. There are 5 currently being undergone, and then 8 upcoming audits for the fiscal year. They have no findings to report, which is wonderful. Finally, the audit committee unanimously approved the audited financial statements. And on behalf of the audit committee, I brought that recommendation to the executive committee, who also unanimously approved the audited financial statements. That concludes my report for this year's audit committee. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Amy. I will call for a motion to approve the audit committee report recommended by the audit committee. And we'll do a very similar process of voting just as we did on the first motion. You will vote electronically to approve or deny this motion. And it looks like we've got a motion from Nick Porter. And because this comes as a recommendation from the Audit Committee report, it does not require a second. So we'll give everyone a moment to wrap up their voting, and then we'll move on. Okay, voting has completed, and we've got unanimous vote. Thanks everyone for voting. Next will be Mr. Mike Thornton, and he'll introduce the Hartwell Foundation video. Mike?
Yeah. I am excited about the Hartwell continuing to fund us, even though we had limited ability to do our challenge events. They've funded these events for years. So just this is a video that we do every year just as a thank you to them for their continued support of AMIkids and our experiential challenge events. And so take a look at this video.
It makes me feel like I'm pushing my goals forward and I'm getting to advance and learn new things, which really helps me push through my struggles.
This week I learned you can't do anything by yourself. It's a team effort. I feel like they did help me reach my potential, help me become a better person.
When I come here to the challenge event, I just feel like happy. Like I just get excited for no reason at all, because I already know when I go down there it's gonna be fun.
My parents, we don't really have that much money to be going out and doing vacation. And for y'all to give me the opportunity to leave Miami-Dade and come have a new experience, I really appreciate that.
I feel like it's a good experience, and it makes me, look at life more. It's more than just being in the streets or not doing no my life. And once you get out to, experience different things, you may look at life a lot more funner.
I appreciate coming on this trip a lot. It showed me many things that I would have never seen in my life.
I, from the bottom of my heart, appreciate this very much, because troubled young youth, they can't just be thrown in and forgotten about. Y'all give us motivation to push and to work and to dig.
Thank you, Hartwell Foundation. This is the best week of my life, probably. This is the most fun I've had in years, and I'm just thankful. Thank you a lot.
Great video. Great. I think I recognize one of our Acadiana kids in there. Anyway, next on the agenda is we're going to introduce Mr. Mark Matheny for the foundation report. Mark?
Hi, good morning. My name is Mark Matheny. I've been involved with AMIkids for more than 25 years after the original behest of my father, who volunteered for more than 30 years with Southwest Florida. I'm very excited to be stepping into some very big shoes as the next foundation board chair, and would first like to personally thank Mark Kreiser for his leadership on the foundation board for the past 5 years, as well as his mentorship for this new role. Just as a quick background on me personally, my family and I reside in Tampa Bay, and professionally, I recently partnered with a large local residential developer, Homes by West Bay, after more than 20 years with Lennar. Before I provide some updates on our fundraising, I do want to thank all the program staff and volunteers for what everyone recognizes has been a very challenging couple of years. Through this adversity, it is clear that our mission is more important than ever. We are critical to help separate a difficult past from a bright future for so many of our students. As for the condition of the foundation, as you'll see, we are on track to hit our goals for the year. We are also looking forward to continuing the matching funds for infrastructure projects for the programs. So if there are any still outstanding gifts to be counted, please submit those to the foundation as soon as possible. The foundation board is continuing to seek gifts for both education and IT, wanting to ensure that our staff and teachers receive the vital resources they need to continue offering the best in quality programming and education to our students. For our vocational training, we're very appreciative of our partners and supporters, particularly the Lennar Foundation, which continues to support our programs, and we are very hopeful that we can continue to grow that partnership as we move forward. Before I conclude, I do want to give a special thanks to OB, Mike Thornton, and Brian LePaycheck for all of your support, as well as another thanks to Mark Kreiser. And thank you all again for a very good 2021. We look forward to continued momentum and success in 2022. Hope you all have a great play season and be well. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mark. I appreciate the report. Next up, we're going to bring back Mr. Brad Robb for the budget approval.
Hi, good morning. My name is Mark Matheny. I've been involved with AMIkids for more than 25 years after the original behest of my father, who volunteered for more than 30 years with Southwest Florida. I'm very excited to be stepping into some very big shoes as the next foundation board chair, and would first like to personally thank Mark Kreiser for his leadership on the foundation board for the past 5 years, as well as his mentorship for this new role. Just as a quick background on me personally, my family and I reside in Tampa Bay, and professionally, I recently partnered with a large local residential developer, Homes by West Bay, after more than 20 years with Lennar. Before I provide some updates on our fundraising, I do want to thank all the program staff and volunteers for what everyone recognizes has been a very challenging couple of years. Through this adversity, it is clear that our mission is more important than ever. We are critical to help separate a difficult past from a bright future for so many of our students. As for the condition of the foundation, as you'll see, we are on track to hit our goals for the year. We are also looking
Thanks, Jerry, and technology. It's all on this old guy. I apologize. So we're here to ask for 2 motions to approve the budget this morning. We're going to follow the same process as earlier. You'll see a pop-up with the motion to approve each budget, and then we just ask that you click on approve and submit. So our first budget motion, the Budget and Finance Committee recommends approval of the AMIkids, Inc. fiscal year 22 operating budget, with flexibility to change particular details while maintaining the budgeted impact to the bottom line. May I please have a motion to accept the committee's recommendation? I believe Brenda Burkett. Yes, it was Brenda with the motion. And since that was a motion coming directly from the Budget and Finance Committee, we won't need a second for that.
Okay, it comes as a motion from Brenda, and it because it comes from motion, I'm sorry, from this committee, it does not need a second. So all those in favor, please vote aye for the motion. Okay, motion approves. Brad, your first motion from Budget and Finance has been approved. You want to do your second motion?
I do. So our second motion, we're going to follow the same. We'll follow the same process a few moments ago. The Budget and Finance Committee recommends approval of the AMIkids Inc. fiscal year 22 capital budget. May I please have a motion to accept the committee's recommendation?
There's a recommendation from Budget and Finance, and just FYI, this is also cleared and been approved by Executive Committee. I do see there's a motion in place. Again, this comes as a recommendation from Budget and Finance. It does not need a second. All those in favor, please say or vote approve. Okay, it looks like the motion has passed as well. Thank you, Brad. Mr. Hayward Golden. Hayward will give our operations report. Hayward.
Hey. Good morning. I'm hoping that we all have been blessed that we could be in the same room and really enjoying each other. But because of what's going on, I understand, but I really do miss you guys. I want to share the operation report with you pretty quick here and just give you a highlight of some of the things that we were facing, some of the things, some of our highlights, some of our successes. I want to start off with our day treatment model, our utilization. One of the tough things, in light of this COVID-19 variant, our programs had to adopt a more strict cleaning and safety measures. We made sure by supporting to make sure that all our programs was following all the guidelines, CDC guidelines and regulation, as well as state guidelines. During this process, I want to thank our executive directors, staff, and other family members, because during this storm, we were able to provide our DJJ service as well as our education, which Ms. Rebecca will talk about more in her presentation. But we were able to provide that service to our kids and didn't miss a beat. And we are now in the process to make sure that because of the low enrollment that affect our utilization, we're making sure that we are constantly in contact with the school board, the local regional office, state office, which would include for all of our programs across our states, which would include our FFT, Infinite, and charter school model. And our goal is basically real simple, is to get our enrollment back up. Our residential program models had the same experience. Our residential programs had to adopt to an even stricter safety and prevention approach because that we had the kids in our care. There are some programs have reinstated visitation under very strict guidelines. All staff and youth are required to wear face masks and make sure that we are following the CDC guidelines at all times. We here at the home office continue to support our programs to make sure that they have all the necessary equipment they need to keep themselves and our kids safe. In the utilization residential program model, there have different things going on in different states. In the state of New Mexico, our issue there is that we have to get those key personnel like licensed mental health counselors, master level counselors, which has been very hard to recruit. So we partner up with a staffing agency to help us to identify those individuals to get them in as quickly as possible. We are working and have put in some places a recruitment and retention incentive plan, and it will only be put in those programs who actually can afford to do that model to help retain staff as to recruit new staff. In Rio Grande, out in Texas, Rio Grande Valley, we have applied and received our child care license. So next phase for us is to get our contract in place, and then we can start working and serving kids through the Texas Health and Human Service Commission and in Texas. Savannah River, we have a license where we can enroll up to 31 kids. The next phase is working to get the contract adjusted and signed to support the license. The tough programs in our residential model, like here in Florida, yes, and Space Coast, and also in Louisiana, Acadiana, had a hard hit on the financial part of those three programs because they all have school board contracts which affect the FTE with the lower enrollment. So we are working as a team to make sure that we can get those enrollments up and hopefully keep things moving into the next phase. Our organization goals, Mike mentioned earlier about the training, and it was to invest in the regional directors' development to increase productivity and capacity. One of the things that we had the regionals to do was to identify key key members in the community to expand their networking. And this is not the group they currently meet with, but additionals too. And I'm very proud of them that they actually knocked that out of the park. So there's been different, next phase of that would be turning those relationships into partnerships for the organization. And part of that goal, we did financial training. And that financial training was not only done with the regional directors, but it's also done with board members as well as executive directors. So we're looking forward to moving that into year 5. And then in year 5, we're going to focus, there's going to be a very heavy focus on, as you can see, 100% of our programs are having an engaging board. There's going to be a heavy focus on helping the local boards get fully engaged with the programs, as well as with the community, as well as with the home office. We have started a plan, and this plan has been driven by outgoing chair and also our incoming chair that have put a lot of focus on making sure that we get the boards what they need to be successful in helping our kids and staff at the local level. We have done some self-evaluations with the boards, and what came from that is that they identified that they need additional training. So you heard Mike mention that we will be doing training hopefully year-round, and so that's going to give us an opportunity to reconnect and focus on giving them the support they need to be successful. Just to share some of our success, and during this storm, as I call it, this COVID-19, we were still able to have some success in growing new business for the organization. And Rosemary will talk more about that, but we did have some growth in New Mexico. We had some growth in South Carolina. We were able to have an impact, hopefully, where we can serve more kids, more families throughout the communities. And I think that shows the strength of the organization as we move forward. And again, we want to make sure that the financial training that we did, we just want to celebrate that, because that was the very first time that we did this company-wide with all the executive directors, regional directors, and business managers to make sure that they understand all their financials to report to the board and report out on. Goal 4 is our mental health goal, which is Mike mentioned, Dr. Bradshaw, and it states that AMIkids will meet the treatment needs of all youth enrolled. That is a real healthy goal, but the success in our fourth year was that our 7-day treatment sites are able to offer reimbursement psychiatrist service. Now, that's going to require a business plan be developed to determine if that's going to be feasible, something for us to do. Each site is on a panel with Sunshine and Beacon Health. We are extremely proud of Dr. Bradshaw and her team on what they've done to move this initiative forward. So we're looking over to go to the 5th year of this goal. And I want to give a big shout out to Florida Blue Foundation. I know Miss Sharon is on the feed, and I want to thank her and her team with Florida Blue on giving us an opportunity. Florida Blue is a mental health first aid. We got a mental health first aid grant through them for 3 years, and this is going to give us an opportunity to train individuals to be able to identify and respond to a mental health emergency and substance abuse. So I'm extremely excited about the possibility of this, and it's going to help us reach in the community throughout the state where we have programs, because we'll get the opportunity to work with local stakeholders, law enforcement, school districts, and of course AMIkids staff. So I'm excited about that. We did a gap analysis to determine the different levels of our program and what type of service that our program need when it relates to the mental health of our kids and programming types. So as you can see on the screen, there are 4 there, and we are going to move forward to make sure that those are implemented at all the programs level, meaning that there will be some type of mental health service or case management at all of our programs. Our business development, we'll start with Arkansas. We have put in a proposal with the community proposal with Arkansas. We submitted that, waiting on response. In Georgia, we are working with the DJJ Department of Justice in Georgia. Right before the COVID hit, Mike and I did a visit and a presentation there, and since then we did a menu of service reference with them to identify all the service here at AMIkids that we have, and so hopefully that will move into a partnership in the near future. In New Mexico, we are working with the Rio Rancho Public Schools. We were looking to offer a school within a school model, and hopefully with support by wraparound service, and hopefully that will turn out to be something very positive for the organization. And in the state of South Carolina, we have turned in and put a proposal in for a day treatment model. So I want to thank you guys for listening to the operation report, and I really appreciate your leadership and support. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Hayward. Next up is Rebecca Corrigan. Rebecca will give the education report.
Good morning. I am honored to present to you this morning and provide the education and vocational update. Due to the continued global pandemic, most of the 2020-2021 school year was completed through a hybrid model, with both virtual and direct instruction, as well as utilizing online courseware. The focus this past year was on closing learning gaps and ensuring education equity for all of our students. We did maintain all of our school board contracts, and we issued over $200,000 in teacher retention bonuses thanks to the foundation board this past year. In addition, this past month, teachers received funds for Classroom Pride to assist with supplies in their rooms. Our staff equals our success. So what did we accomplish this past year? Most importantly, what did our students accomplish this past year? With nearly 1,700 middle school courses completed, 1,500 high school credits earned, and 66% of our youth making gains, learning gains in both math and reading, and approximately 99 diplomas issued. For those students placed in jobs, the average wage was $11.07. As Florida just this week raised their minimum wage to $10, we are proud to know that we are placing our students in jobs above that rate. Moving into the vocational update, AMIkids made great strides to ensure vocational services are being provided across all of our programs. Our construction training program is now registered not with just one state, but now 2 states, as a pre-apprenticeship model in both Florida and most recently, South Carolina. Our AMIkids Advisory Committee was established this past year with the goal and vision to engage employers, public educators, higher education, as well as community-based organizations just like us to create a true pipeline for young people from training to job placements to career pathways. Next, let's take a look at who is engaged in our training programs, our vocational training programs, and what were those results. Our participants were mostly male and around 19 years of age. 70% of those who enrolled in our vocational training program completed successfully. With over 800 enrolled, 714 industry recognized credentials earned, and over 300 job placements, our AMIkids vocational programming continues to have a great impact. So how are we going to maintain that? Let's talk sustainability. I'm very pleased to announce that this past July, AMIkids was awarded 3 additional Department of Labor grants. The first being Department of Labor Workforce Pathways for $5 million. Each of these are 3-year grants. Workforce Pathways will allow the opportunity for us to sustain our services in the state of Florida, adding Emerald Coast, Gaston, and Tallahassee. As well as in year 2, we will be allowed to add the states of New Mexico and North Carolina to our vocational programming. For the first time, we have a Youth Build program in the state of Florida. Youth Build Pensacola will begin services this fall as they were awarded $1.5 million to start their services. As well as our very first Youth Build program awardee, Baton Rouge, was re-awarded to go into their year 4 of Youth Build services. Lennar Homes, as reported last year, expanded from the Tampa to 4 additional sites, and we are working with the Lennar Foundation again this year to continue those services. We are so very thankful for that partnership. So speaking of year 5, what's the plan for this year? We want to ensure for our education goals that all of our programs have high-performing educational services. That is at 100% of a level. So the areas that we're going to focus on for this year 5 is, of course, our education gains for our students, creating streamlined training for all of our education staff, and securing secondary education placements for those students when they complete our programming. This includes both higher education and going back into their districted schools. Similar to that for year 5 for vocational, same percentage, 100%, regardless of funding, for our programs to have effective career readiness and job placement training. We want to make sure that we can standardize our training matrix for those staff as well. We want to increase our offerings under industry recognized credentials, and we want to continue to secure additional partners to support these efforts, as well as secondary placements into our career pathways, as well as our partnered apprenticeship programs. I want to thank you for your continued support and Kids First.
Okay, thank you, Rebecca. Appreciate that report. Next up is going to be our salary and incentive report, and that'll be presented by Mr. Newton Thomas.
Good morning, board members. I'm Newton Thomas, a member of AMIkids Baton Rouge and chair of the Salary and Incentive Committee. And it's my pleasure to report to y'all this year's results of the Salary and Incentive Committee. There are a bunch of fiduciary responsibilities that are involved with the Salary and Incentive Committee, and there are multiple people that we have those responsibilities to. The first, of course, is the president and CEO, Mike. And one of the things that, if you talk about the organizational structure of AMIkids, the chair changes every 2 years. And it would be hard on anyone if their performance review, which is technically given by the chair, because that's the person that works closely with the president and CEO. And if that was changing every 2 years, put yourself in the situation, arguably you had a new boss every 2 years and you were going to have a performance review. Well, that's a difficult thing. So we looked to make a standard process that there would be continuity, both for Mike's interest and for the chairman's interest, because he would be the new chair and he would want to be able to conduct his review consistent with what has been done in the past. So the committee itself is structured. We have 8, the current chair, Jerry, and we also have 7 past chairs, including myself, that was a chair, and I'm chair of the Salary and Incentive Committee. We meet twice a year and review the performance. Now, the metrics that we review are, as at the beginning of the fiscal year for AMI, the chair and the president and CEO sit down and establish a list of objectives that they have for the CEO to achieve during the year. And this came from one of the original members of this committee was Bill Myers, a chair earlier than anyone else on this committee. And this was the form that he used at Barnett Bank that was reviewed for all management. And you would sit down and say, you developed all of the goals that that manager would have for the year, and then have a very subjective, it's just against those printed goals and objectives, you give a rating, and with every goal and objective, you put a value on it, a point value. And if you add all of the points of, it's about a 4-page document, you add all of those values together, and you've got a total points. And so when you go through and grade that executive, he gets a score on each one of those individual objectives. And you get to the end, you have a cumulative total score. So if the total points that were projected were, he could earn up to 80 points, you look and see how many points did he earn, and that gives you a percentage of the objectives that were accomplished. And these are intentionally not soft objectives. We want you to hold a meeting there to get results and to accomplish things. So we have that as the objective part. What we realized shortly into this process was that every year, the things that come up during a year that were never thought of before the beginning of the year. Classic example of this would be this past year, Mike was faced with the COVID issues. Well, this is something that took a big portion of his time to oversee and manage, but it wasn't listed as an objective, and he wasn't getting points and credit for doing that. And we realized that that was not an effective way to do it. So we decided that we would take the objective score and make that be 60% of the review, and then create a 40% review that was subjective, that would be based upon the chairs of AMIkids observations as to the person's performance during the entire year and his ability to accomplish objectives and the communication levels and everything else. So you take those two scores together and they give you a percentage of his accomplishment, and you apply that towards the eligible bonus. Now, every year, the Salary Incentive Committee reviews and has set the eligible bonus. If he got 100% rating, he would get 100% of that bonus for the year. And this is the bonus on the year that is just ending, the fiscal year just ending. It is not going forward. And they also look at his salary, look at the salary history, and we then decide what would be an appropriate salary for the coming year. And so they make a recommendation on that as well. And so the committee has a very formal structure to go through this. And what we normally do is have the current chair and the CEO sit down with the committee and review the objective performance, both of them having conversations and discussions about the ratings that were given and what their thoughts were. Then the CEO is excused from the meeting, and the entire committee has a detailed discussion with the chair of AMIkids and go back through the points and literally have an open discussion. And if out of that there is any belief that there should be any changes in that, or that there's significant disagreement, we come to a unified opinion of a fair and equitable rating. And so that is done. And at the point in time that you've completed that, you now have a cumulative earned bonus award for the year just ended. And so the committee then looks at and sits down and the chair will have the meeting with the CEO and go through with him the evaluation of the Salary and Incentive Committee. And that report of the Salary and Incentive Committee is then obviously documented. We've got minutes, we've got the objective criterion that were used and the scores, and that is all put into a package and submitted to the executive committee. And they have the chance to look at that for 2 weeks prior to the next executive committee meeting. And our protocols are that if anyone has a question or any disagreement with anything that was being presented, they should call either the chair, of course Jerry this year, or myself, the chair of the committee. And if we're unable to make them comfortable with the logic and the methodology that was used to make this evaluation, then the entire committee would be reconvened and these issues would be heard by the entire committee. So we gave both a total review to the executive committee and their ability to question and challenge that. But what we didn't want to have was this become Mike being reviewed in a public forum with 15 people. That would not be a fair and just thing. So we kept this where it was done in that manner. And that was the process we followed this year. And it was submitted to the Salary and Incentive Committee. It was presented to the executive committee, and it is a recommendation. That is all we submit. This is the recommendation of the Salary and Incentive Committee. And they voted to concur, unanimous vote, to concur with our recommendations. That information is then put in the files. And again, one of the fiduciaries that we've got would be, as any nonprofit, the 990s, which are the tax returns, are available to the general public. So if there were ever any questions about AMI, the general public or even the media could be looking at the tax returns. And in those, they post the salary and compensation of the top executive. And so there was always the feeling that if there were ever any incident that occurred at AMI in general, and if the media was looking at this, they naturally may question, which is a logical question, how are these numbers determined? And we felt that it was very important with the fiduciary responsibilities of AMI to the general public or to the media, that we have a very detailed process that involved quite a few people that were reviewing this, including the entire executive committee. So I feel that we have done that in a very comprehensive, typical AMI, comprehensive manner that accomplishes the objectives for everyone that is involved. I don't think it's appropriate to delve into the minutia of the report itself. But if anyone has any questions, they should feel free to contact myself or Jerry as the chair. And this year, we went ahead and had the chair-elect attend the meeting, because in the future, he would be performing the role that Jerry performed this year. And we wanted him to have actual experience with the process and to know how it worked. So Justin was there, and he was not a voting member of the committee, participated in discussions, but we wanted to educate the future management or board management of AMI with the process, so they would be comfortable when they inherited the role. And that was done this year as well. So I will tell to the entire annual meeting with all of the board members, we have followed to the letter the fiduciary and processes that we had laid out as a salary and incentive committee. And I think it was done with great forethought, conscience, and logical analysis. And I think y'all should feel comfort that the organization is being governed on the compensation issues of the top person in a very effective manner. As such, that is the report I am submitting to y'all. It was done. I feel very comfortable with it. If anyone has any concerns or would like to have any questions, feel free to contact me or to contact Jerry as the chair, and we'll be glad to hopefully answer any questions that there may be. I appreciate the honor of being able to submit this to y'all. I'm sorry that we're having a virtual meeting and I'm in a taped process. I would much prefer, I love going to the annual meeting and getting a chance to see all the board members and talk with people, and you have a direct communication line. And I'm sorry that that didn't occur this year. But nevertheless, this is respectfully submitted by the Salary and Incentive Committee, and I think it is meeting the requirements that we had set out for ourselves. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Newton, for that thorough report. Next up, we're going to have our new Resource Development VP, Mr. Brian LePasic. Brian?
Good morning. It is my pleasure to join you this morning. For those of you whom I have not yet met, I am Brian LePasic, and I joined the AMI family this past May as the Vice President of Resource Development. After over 20 years in the nonprofit sector, and the majority of that time based in Chicago working in healthcare philanthropy, I'm truly honored to work with such mission-focused colleagues and dedicated volunteers like yourselves. I very much look forward to visiting you in your local communities over the next year, learning about your successes and challenges, and providing whatever assistance you may be most supportive to you and your local boards as you continue to grow your resource development. I'm now pleased to present to you a combined Resource Development Department and Resource Development Committee report on behalf of outgoing Committee Chair and incoming National Chair, Justin Day. Strategic goal number 2 of revenue shortfalls aims to strategically and systematically develop resources to support financial needs both now and in the future. There are 6 specific outcomes in the 4th year of this goal, with the first and foremost being to raise $1 million in unrestricted gifts for the AMIkids Home Office and Foundation. We achieved 95% of that goal with a raised dollar total of over $953,000. The second specific outcome was to achieve 25% increase in home office major gifts of $10,000 or greater, and we achieved 69% of that goal. Unearthing the major gift potential of our boat donors and lessees has been a particular focus, and the goal of attaining $500,000 in gift revenue from this unique pool of candidates was our target for this past year. With the gift capture of more than $473,000, we've achieved 95% of that target and laid the foundation for our yacht facilitator's future success as an extension of the Resource Development Department. As we have continued to strategically support and empower our programs and program boards to grow their fundraising revenue, we sought to establish baselines grounded in sector best practices. For all of our programs with boards, we focused on developing and implementing consistent give and get policies for each. Out of the 29 program boards eligible, 83% now have established give and get policies. Then we took a deeper dive into 15 programs in support of the fundraising goals of $2,500 for executive directors and $5,000 for their boards. Key to this initiative was a potential dollar-for-dollar match up to $2,500 for each goal by the AMIkids Foundation Board. Of the 15 supported programs eligible, the executive director match, 15 achieved their goal. Of the 14 boards eligible, 7 achieved their goal. With this additional resource focus on the 15 selected programs, we targeted the goal of 15% average overall increase to the revenue for that cohort group. The goal of $616,000, which was led by Director of Development for Programs Chad Cadwell, was achieved and surpassed with a total of over $647,000, or 105% of goal. Taking all the resource development outcomes as a group and averaging the successes, we have an overall achievement of 85% goal for the fiscal year 2021. A resource development focus for the 5th and final year of the current strategic plan will be to assist more programs to surpass the threshold of having 5% or more of their total revenue generated through sustainable fundraising. And secondly, to increase the number of programs with 90 days or more of operating revenues. Now I'd like to turn to a report on the successes of our strategic goal number 6, which focuses on social media and our utilization of social media platforms like Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, YouTube, and Instagram to raise awareness about our positive impact on youth and their communities. In year 4, we focused on increasing engagement across all platforms to a total of 100,000 impressions, and we achieved 95% of that goal. Secondly, we look to increase our total follower count to 12,000 across all platforms. And now we have over 10,000 followers, or 85% of that goal. Taking an average of the 4-year social media outcome successes, we've achieved 91% of that goal for fiscal year 2021. Looking into year 5, we'd like to continue to build on our current follower base and increase followers by 50% for a total of over 16,000 followers. And like all public organizations currently utilizing social media for communication, we are ever watchful for negative or harmful messaging. This year, we will develop written guidelines to mitigate negative media messages about AMIkids and provide training to appropriate program staff, to manage their program pages and social media presence. Thank you again for your investments of time, talent, and treasure to advance the mission of AMIkids and the youth we serve. Have a great day.
Okay, thank you, Brian. Next up, we're going to have Ms. Rosemary Brackman. Rosemary will provide a support services report. Rosemary?
Good morning, I'm Rosemary Brackman, and I lead the support services teams.
I want to start out by highlighting some of the accomplishments of the team over the past year. My peer, Angie, will be presenting the support services activities related to human resources. In addition to the growth that I will speak about shortly, we were able to maintain and secure a total of $4.3 million in legislative appropriations from Florida. This allowed us to continue to provide our family-centric model as well as our gender-specific prevention programs. It also included maintenance of our prior year funding for our workforce development programs throughout the state. The work done by Joseph Galena, Nick Millar, Hayward, and his team to develop the virtual tour model was critical in getting legislators to our programs that impacted our ability to obtain these funds. As Rebecca, Maria, Hayward have already highlighted, it has been a challenging year related to COVID. The support services team worked very closely with operations to ensure that contract amendments were in place that allowed for us to provide alternative services without a loss of funding. Our risk management team, led by Matt Fry, has worked diligently over the last few years to put safety measures to reduce the number and cost of our auto claims. This includes use of vehicle telematics that provide notifications of unsafe driving, continuous driver record notifications and monitoring, and most recently, the addition of dash cams to all company-owned vehicles. As a result of these efforts and all of our program and team members' utilization of these tools, our new insurance broker, Bouchard Insurance, was able to negotiate a new automobile policy that reduced our deductible from $350,000 to zero. The same safety first culture has been adopted at our programs related to our workers' compensation claims, and we have seen a significant reduction over the last 5 years. Our team, led by Mario Lopez, works diligently to help team members return to work and to educate providers and insurers about our program models to help manage the cost of injuries. Our program leaders have been important in this process as they've implemented those safety procedures. As we move on to our strategic goal related to growth, we had several objectives that were on our goals this year. We were able to achieve 87% of those. As Mike already mentioned, one of those related to our impact report. Under the direction of our Director of Research and Data, Dr. Jessica Mitchell, we were able to accomplish that. This report is key to demonstrate our impact to our stakeholders on the outcome of our work. We also focus on increasing our visibility and our influence. Many of our team members, Rebecca, Dr. Bradshaw, Hayward, multiple other people, including Mike, present to different national organizations to make sure that people know about the work that we do. In addition to that, we have a goal of maintaining all of our current business. I am thrilled to report that we were able to maintain 100% of our current business. This included contract renewals or extensions for our residential programs in Florida and Louisiana, our service coordination program in Virginia, and our wraparound program in Louisiana. We also were successful in maintaining our current contracts in North Carolina and Alabama through a competitive bid process. In addition, as Hayward already spoke about, we were able to expand our services in New Mexico to include a family-centric model as well as a transitional living home. And we were awarded an additional contract in South Carolina to provide another intensive residential program. These contracts had a total value of over $8.5 million. And as Rebecca mentioned, we were also awarded multiple Department of Labor grants, totaling over $8 million. As we look to the current year, our goals are very much the same. Again, our first objective will be to maintain all of our current business. This involves either obtaining contract extensions or responding to a request for a proposal in a competitive bid process if there are no further extensions available. We have a strong team approach to developing these proposals that include the local program executive directors, as well as our subject matter experts in the home office. We also will continue to look for new opportunities to grow and provide additional services to youth, and our goal is to obtain new contracts with an annual value of over $6.5 million. And finally, we hope to leverage our success that we have had in Florida and expand our legislative appropriations to at least one additional state. As you can see, the support service team accomplished a lot and has a lot of work to do this year, but our focus is on providing support to the programs. Please don't hesitate to reach out to our team should you need assistance. Thank you.
Thank you, Rosemary. Next up, we're going to have Mike Newstrom to deliver a report on program evaluation and development. Mike, the floor is yours.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Mike Newstrom. I'm the chairman of the Program Evaluation and Development Committee, and I'm here this morning to report on our meeting we had this previous Friday. And we have limited time, so I'm going to be brief. If you're interested in a more detailed report, let me know and I'll be glad to provide that to you. Our meeting was begun by Mike Thornton, CEO Mike Thornton, giving us a quick snapshot of the upcoming virtual BOT meeting, October the 7th, which this film would be presented at. He also talked briefly about the COVID situation and how AMI was addressing it. He also introduced a new member of our committee, which we're very excited about having him, Judge William P. Johnson, Chief Judge, United States District Court in New Mexico. As everyone knows, New Mexico's been a very active state recently with us, so we're very pleased to have him on board. Dr. Kristen Early began doing the research part of the report or the meeting the other day. Kristen Early, Justice Research Center, gave us an overview of the 2021 annual outcomes and output report. It's a very detailed description of our students entering the program, what they go through while they're in the program, and then a measure of their recidivism or how long they stayed or how well they did after they finished our program. We had 3,000 youth, and the report covered the calendar year 2019, 1,200 receiving child welfare services, and 2,000 youth receiving delinquency program services. The recidivism rate of both combined was 71%, which is very good. And Dr. Early also pointed out there were some discussions going on with Florida OJJ about the definition of certain phrases, particularly program completion, which would have an impact on that recidivism rate. Dr. Early also reported the results of a survey given to executive directors to get their opinions about what's the main issue in their students' situation within their programs, called a pulse survey. And the key factors there were negative peer groups, school issues, mental health, and family functioning issues rather. Okay, next up, Ms. Rebecca Corrigan provided an overview of education and vocational updates, highlights 2021, showed significant gains in math scores, continued success in students earning GEDs, industry credentials, high school credits, in addition of 2 programs, Florida and South Carolina registered pre-apprenticeship programs. She also reported on DJJ Florida Accountability Rule, which comes in and evaluates the programs, education programs in the state of Florida. We did exceptionally well in that area with 17 programs total. 15 were exceptional or commendable, and only 2 had some issues, and we're addressing those as we speak. Positive news also in the education area, significant amount of money, $8 million in 3 grants over the next 3 years, 3.5 years. So things are moving well in education. Next up, Dr. Amy Bradshaw Hoppick, report on mental health strategic goals and progress. Continuation of our Florida Medicaid certification, which is a big deal. 7-day treatment programs in Florida have been approved and are online, and psychiatric services are now being provided on site. The big discussion topic was family-centric programs, which are expanding in New Mexico, as well as in the state of Florida. And the research earlier cited by Dr. Kristen Early has been of great value in us presenting this idea, this modality, this treatment method to other states and promoting it and getting accepted by those states and funding it by those states. So that was a very productive discussion. We talked about how to proceed in the future, and funding would have to be provided by donations and grants to start up those programs in other jurisdictions. Areas that we're also pursuing in the behavioral health area, trauma responsive programming, which is a sort of a new focus, some of that was assisted by a grant from Florida Blue for mental first aid training. Okay, next, Dr. Jessica Mitchell reported on data and research. She reported there's a second round of organization-wide training in justice, equity, diversity, and inclusion. Over 250 staff members have taken the course. There's been very good response by everyone, feedback and openness in terms of openness of the program and seeking input on those particular items. Breaking barriers was also discussed. We've had 3 community forums. Dr. Heidi, a member of our committee, has been a moderator for those series, and it's gone over very well, been very well received by everyone participating. The next step is to develop an action plan to how to implement that throughout Florida and throughout our other programs. We're also working with an external program quality assessment observer by the name of Weichert. It's a company at several sites in Florida to develop a framework for integrating several of our newer practices, the one mentioned just now, JEDI, trauma responsiveness and social emotional learning. And I know that's a lot of different words, but essentially it's new, the more recent approaches to dealing with kids who have problems, issues, and how to integrate the newer approaches into our well-known and very productive over the years AMIkids personal growth model. So it's sort of moving forward and looking for new things and things that work, evaluating them and moving in that direction. Hayward Golding at the end also reported on the growth of AMIkids in New Mexico, and also some interest expressed by the state of Arkansas. I want to thank Hayward and Lisette in particular for the great job they've done in turning this around from our meeting last Friday to where we can have something to present to the BOT on short notice. So again, as I mentioned earlier, if you're interested in a more detailed report, we'll have the minutes of the meeting available soon. Overall, I think we're moving in the right direction with program evaluation. We're very interested, and that was a key component of Judge Frank Orlando's whole philosophy, keeping him in mind, that we need to evaluate what we're doing and then adjust it as we go forward. And I think that's what the committee's been doing, and I'm very pleased to be affiliated with it. Thank you very much for listening, and I hope we have a good BOT. Thanks.
Thanks, Mike. I appreciate that. Next up, we're going to have Angie Hastings with our Human Resources report. Angie?
Good morning. I'm honored to serve as your Chief People and Culture Officer. The role comes with a great deal of responsibility, but also provides the opportunity to utilize the almost 30 years of my experience with AMIkids. I've been fortunate to work in various roles, from day treatment and residential programming to supporting team members through the home office and operations, training, and human resources to further our mission. I'm passionate about our service to youth and families and fostering an environment where our team members are engaged, supported, and challenged to excel. In 2020-21, our focus was on increasing awareness and training to increase retention of our team members. We achieved our goal at 81%. We provided training and development to enhance our leaders' ability to create a supportive work culture, covering topics such as effective workplace communication, team member growth and development planning, and incident investigation and reporting. In order to develop program-level subject matter experts to enhance local recruitment and retention efforts, we provided benefits training to our business managers and executive directors. We launched a professional growth opportunity awareness training for all team members to demonstrate the multiple avenues for professional growth available in AMIkids. We implemented a standardized recruiting process and providing training to executive directors and business managers on using our recruitment tools. Data shows that delays in the recruitment process potentially damage our business reputation with applicants. The rise of reviewing platforms such as Glassdoor and Google Reviews has made the recruitment process more transparent than ever before, and we recognize that we run the risk of losing top candidates to competitors. And those unfilled roles often have direct impact on productivity and existing team member morale because of increased workloads. We conducted 3-month onboarding check-ins with team members regarding participation in key onboarding activities, such as weekly check-ins with supervisors, training, mentor assignment, benefits information, and professional development planning. Of the 5 indicators, 2 had low participation. This included the development of a professional development plan and assignment of a peer coach. Based on that data, the team provided additional skills training for leaders and worked with marketing to develop materials to increase awareness of the peer coach program. Our fiscal year 2021 turnover goal was 33%. Our actual year-end turnover was 55.6%. 5 programs had 0% turnover, and 16 programs met the organizational goal of 34% or lower. The highest turnover position was direct care staff with more than 100% turnover. This is significant because this position impacts our ability to maintain staff to youth ratio, meeting contract guidelines. It also has a potential effect on team member burnout by having other team members work additional hours for shift coverage. For year 5, we will conduct stay interviews with 6 identified programs using a cross-section of the highest and lowest turnover. The results of a stay interview give you knowledge about what the organization can improve now and how you can retain your remaining valued team members. The top 10 programs with lowest retention will develop a team member retention plan to be reviewed monthly by Operations and Human Resources. We will use data to determine the cost of turnover and set program goals. HR and Operations will collaborate with those programs to develop solutions based on team member needs and hold leaders accountable to meet their retention goals. Each quarter, we will recognize and promote programs with 0 turnover and the highest retention for critical positions. In order to engage new team members in AMIkids culture, mission, and values, we'll provide a minimum of 4 Kids First University trainings. We will work to identify and engage our top performers for retention. Great performers actually lift the entire team by resetting standards of behavior and productivity and generating a ripple effect that can influence everyone in the workplace. Employee retention is a key goal for our organization, but it's important to drill down into this metric and make sure we're doing a good job of identifying and keeping our top performers. Since March 2020, we've had 150 team members and 100 youth test positive for COVID-19. This past year, COVID-19 negatively impacted our recruitment efforts to fill positions as many candidates opted for COVID relief funding for income. Organizationally, we continue to monitor and comply with state public health orders and directives. A New Mexico public health order requires mandatory vaccination for our Sandoval and Farmington locations. Virginia has issued an executive directive requiring our team members to disclose vaccination status. In June, we conducted a survey to estimate the proportion of our team members at large that are or would be vaccinated. This data was used to determine next steps in promoting educational strategies to encourage vaccination across the organization. We were fortunate to partner with Mikhail Scott of Indelible Business Solutions and our Tallahassee Board of Trustees to prevent 5 awareness and education seminars for team members focused on the COVID-19 vaccine effectiveness and safety, vaccine development, side effects, long-term outlook, and its impact on our communities, and the significance of vaccination in the effort to protect and save lives. Our next steps include the development of a follow-up survey to measure the change in the number of team member vaccinations. As an organization, we recommend vaccination for all team members. We continue to encourage our team members to get vaccinated via messaging and information on access to the vaccine. All new hires will be required to be vaccinated. We will review the survey data to determine additional need for vaccine education and support for our team members. As always, thank you for your continued leadership and support.
Angie, thank you for your report. Next up, we have Mr. Corey Lee, who will, he's the Chair of Human Resources and Risk Management and will deliver that report. Corey?
Former member of the Miami-Dade board where I served for a number of years, and unfortunately, my family made the decision to leave South Florida and we moved to Northeastern Ohio. So I was forced to resign from the South Florida board. However, I will be joining the executive committee for AMIkids, and also I have been serving as the chair for the Risk Management and Human Resources Committee and will continue to serve in that capacity. So I'm really excited about the opportunity to work with the organization on a national level and continue the work we've been doing. So that being said, now let me kind of tell you about the HR and RM committee. The charter of the Human Resources and Risk Management Committee is to assist the AMIkids Board of Directors in its oversight of the identification, assessment, and management of issues, opportunities, and risks regarding AMIkids operations, assets, business, compliance, and human resources. So what we really try to do is we work with members from local boards in the community to make sure we have experience in the fields of human resources, attorneys, business owners, people who are insurance professionals, so that we are really providing both the board and the organization our advice and counsel. In order to do that work, we really look at 6 main issues. We look at insurance claims, like what are the trends we're seeing in claims? Are there ways to reduce them? We look at insurance policies and coverage. We look at what policies or new products might be out in the market. What are the pricing for those? We look at employee retention, making sure the company and the organization are thinking strategically about ways of employing our number one asset, our talent. We look at staff development, which is someone tied up with employee retention, and looking at ways, making sure we're investing in the talent and allowing those people to develop. We also look at organizational policies, which is just kind of the governance of the organization as various committees. And then finally, we look at litigation. And the way the committee works is that we work with members from the home office who provide us information on these 6 areas, and then we collaborate and brainstorm and try to make sure that the organization is following the best practices, not only within the nonprofit world, but is taking advantage of the knowledge and leadership that is present on the committee so that we really are a world-class organization. So what have we been doing here in this past a good year since I last talked to you? And like a lot of organizations, COVID has been one of the things we really have been thinking about, or we've been putting our efforts into, and trying to make sure that it does not get in the way of our mission, and it does not get in the way of providing the great services that are needed to kids. So luckily, we've had a fairly minor number of COVID cases in the organization as a whole. So you'll see that we've had 146 team members have tested positive for COVID, and that number does not necessarily sound super low, but when you consider we have 700 total team members and look at the contagion of COVID, I think the organization has done a pretty good job of having such a low rate of positive tests. At the same time, we've only had 92 youth that have tested positive since March 2020. And that's remembering we have 1,000 youth at any one time. So in what's been a really challenging time, the organization, I think, has done a really good job of having some fairly low transmission rates because of all the mitigation strategies that have been employed. I can also say that the organization has done, I think, some really great work to encourage our members and team members to get vaccinated. While there is not a requirement that current employees be vaccinated, the organization has conducted awareness and education webinars to encourage vaccination. I think those have been successful in allowing to get people to get some information that they otherwise did not have. And I think it'll help us continue to increase the level of vaccination we have amongst our current staff and team members. Now, for new team members, there is in fact a vaccination requirement, so that, you know, as the company and the organization go out and look to hire new individuals, those people in fact must be vaccinated. And like all organizations, we would continue to monitor CDD, CDC, state, local, and all stakeholder guidance to make sure that we really are evolving and employing the best practices as guidelines arise, and as the course of this pandemic changes. We're trying to make sure that we are doing what's best for our staff members, our team members, our kids, and the organization as a whole. Now, on the HR side, we really have tried to make sure that COVID does not get in the way of doing some of the great things we've been doing. And as you've heard for the past few years, employee retention has really been something that AMIkids has really focused on, and that's been really focused on recruitment, development, and engagement. And you will hear more about a lot of the things we've been doing, both from Angie and Mike, but I think it's important to note that specifically in years past, I think we've talked about the bridge the gap between police and our youth, and we've done some expansion of that work. Specifically, we've expanded that program, what is called the JEDI training program, which is the Justice, Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion training, and Mike and Angie will talk to you about that as well. Another thing which you'll hear about from Mike is our human resources information system, which is really taking a lot of the strain off of employees, hopefully, and taking away some of those menial tasks, which were taking a bit of a time, and allowing them to be a bit more automated. Next, I want to talk to you a little about like the insurance side. One of the things that can be fairly costly for our programs are insurance numbers. And as I mentioned earlier, we as a committee monitor all the insurance claims. The two largest types of claims the programs tend to see are both auto and workers' comp claims. So I'm going to talk to you about those. Now, you'll see two lines, a blue bar graph, which is the total number of paid auto claims. And then you'll see the orange line, which is the total amount of basically the dollars incurred. And one of the things you'll notice is we had our peak policy year in 2018 to 2019, and the amount of dollars claimed has steadily decreased since that point in time. You might also notice for the policy year 2019 to 2020, there was an extra 3-month period of time when there was some negotiation, and there was basically an add-on to that policy year before we went into our 2021 year. So we just wanted to note that you see a normal 12-month year for policy year 2019, 2020, and then you'll see an extra 3 months. You may also notice that it looks like the number of claims is increasing in 2020, 2021 without the dollars incurred increasing, and that's because there has been a change in the type of policy. So in our current policy, there's been an elimination of deductibles entirely, where previously there had been a deductible of $350,000. In addition, the current policy covers physical damage. So we are seeing more claims made in our current policy year, even though they're for a lesser dollar amount. And you might want to ask, well, if we have more claims made, isn't this going to drive our insurance up? No, we've been in contact with our insurers, and they were expecting the number of claims to go up with a no deductible policy and physical damage being covered. So we are well within the numbers that the insurer was expecting, and we do not expect to see any significant changes in our status around auto insurance. Now, one of the things we have been doing to ensure that our numbers of both claims and the amounts of claims has decreased has been using some specific strategies. One, we've been using telematics, so we're notified about any unsafe driving practices of our drivers. Two, we've used a continuous monitoring of driver records, meaning that even if someone is not in their own AMI vehicle, they're having some sort of vehicular or driver-related event, we become aware of them. And the third thing we're doing is we've been adding dash cams to all company-owned vehicles. So those three things together have been meaningful in allowing us to make sure that we are limiting our exposure around auto claims. The other area which I mentioned is a significant potential risk to the company is the workers' comp claims. And as you can see there, since we've had the focus on safety and loss control with monthly safety meetings, incident investigations, and training on all incidents, we've really seen a decrease in both the number and dollars incurred of our worker comps claims. And in addition to those three things I mentioned earlier, we've been also having an emphasis on in-network providers to help reduce costs, looking at local providers from medical teams to help better understand our operations, and looking at a light duty matrix based on work restrictions in order to provide team members the opportunity to return to work if there in fact has been an incident. So, those two things together, I think, are not the two things, but this strategy overall has been, I think, helpful in minimizing and reducing our workers' comp claims. So with that, I conclude the report of the Human Resources and Risk Management Committee. One thing I would like to add is that, we are a committee, I think, that is always looking for new members. If you think you have something to add around, best practices of insurance or human resources or training or mentorship, we would love to have you as a team member. Feel free to reach out to Rosemary. She can tell you a bit more about what it is we do. We would love to have you. With that said, I hope everyone enjoys the rest of their day and their time with us here at AMIkids that we're spending virtually. Thank you.
Yeah, I want to just introduce a really special video. We lost Judge Orlando, some people call him Uncle Frank, this year, and we did a tribute video talking about his impact. Obviously, he's one of our founders, so he had a tremendous impact on the organization as a whole. But personally, and for all of our, president and CEOs, he's, been a mentor. And so I just want to introduce this video for Judge Orlando.
I consider that AMI, as it grew, I grew. And as it expanded, my horizons expanded. And I get a lot of pleasure out of doing things like I've done the last 2 days, being with those kids up in Tallahassee and hugging them. And it's a feeling of satisfaction, and it's a feeling of accomplishment. I've over the years I've gone on and I have lifelong friends, you know. So the things I do with AMI are really important to me. AMI is basically like a family to me.
So we've concluded most of our business. I'm going to turn it over to Jerry, but before I do, I have a couple of special items for him because we're getting ready to do the transition from the chair. So we know that Jerry is a wine connoisseur. So we got this special wine and cheese, and it's to the Prejean family.
All right.
And so we wanted to present that to you. And we also have another one of your favorite pastimes. I think you're going to really enjoy this. And we got that from Ybor City, to probably one of the places you visited in Ybor City.
All right. Thank you. Guys, as I prepare to end my term as chair and pass the gavel, I really wanted to say thank you for this opportunity to serve. It's been a pleasure. You know, as a incoming chair, you know, and I'm trying to preface and tell Justin that we all have these lofty goals. And of course, my personal goal was to get out and visit about a dozen plus programs that I have not had the opportunity to visit. And needless to say, that didn't happen. And then, but the other goal that I really wanted to focus on was really focus on growing a larger, more diverse board. We need more folks doing the heavy lifting out there. We need more folks telling the AMI Kids story. But that diverse board, really with the emphasis of lowering the average age of our local boards by 5 years. 5 years does not seem like a lot, but in looking at the Judge Orlando video, it clearly sent the message to me that we need to start identifying our next wave of leadership for this organization. So that goal was pretty, I think, on point if we can get this thing done. Even though I didn't get a chance to meet with those local boards, I still think we accomplished a lot. We certainly developed some virtual training that went over extremely well, and it was all with the emphasis on equipping our board members to be more effective. And with them being more effective, we feel that they would be more engaged. We developed a self-assessment tool to help analyze the current board makeup and gaps in representation, whether it be technical or occupational skills, race, gender, makeup, and of course, age of those board members. That filter was rolled out at a couple of training sessions, and I would encourage you guys to use it if at all possible, if needed help with really assessing where your board is as far as diversity and general board makeup. The other thing we've done is even through this COVID environment, we've added several new programs and contracts during this COVID. So I really appreciate the staff ability. They could have easily taken the approach to kind of sit back and wait for the dust to settle, but no, they really were energized and looked for other opportunities to get involved. And last accomplishment that I'm extremely proud of, especially as a banker, we delivered a very sound financial performance during these 2 years, during these uncertain times. So I thank the staff for really focusing on the finances, and really this thing could have really gotten out of hand rather quickly, but it didn't. Again, I'd like to really stress the importance of board diversity going forward. I found that through these trying times, the most effective boards are the ones that were most diverse, and of course, those were the ones that were most engaged. Those are the ones that found an opportunity to pivot when their current programs were somewhat at risk and looked for other opportunities to serve kids. I think board diversity is especially important now, given the political, economic, cultural, and pandemic-related challenges that we face as a nation. So I would encourage you guys to really focus in on continue to develop your boards, continue to identify that new wave of leadership so we can continue to move this organization forward. Again, I thank you guys for the opportunity to serve. Mike and his team are just top notch, and the whole staff answered my calls, even though there was maybe some unusual requests at times, but I appreciate their flexibility and ability to work with me. And again, thank you guys. Now up, I'd like to welcome our new National Board Chair, Mr. Justin Day.
Perfect. Thank you, Jerry, and good afternoon. And I appreciate everyone joining us via Teams. I know it's disappointing that we can't meet in person, but I do look forward to an amazing Board of Trustees meeting in 2022. I want to first thank you, Jerry, for your leadership over the last 2 years. I know your time as chair wasn't what you expected, and there certainly were some rough seas, but you have kept us afloat and you have set us on a path to success as we come out of this pandemic, and I will try not to sink us now. I want to thank the Board of Trustees for your support and trust in me to become the next chair of this great organization. I look forward to working with each of you over the next 2 years to continue making this the top organization for at-risk youth. I want to thank Mike and his staff for all of their hard work and dedication to our cause. I truly believe we have one of the best nonprofit teams in the country, and I'm excited to continue to work with each of them over the next 2 years. I want to briefly just outline my goals as chair over the next 2 years. As you heard from Jerry, board engagement and diversity is a priority. The importance of having strong board members for AMIkids is vital to our success as an organization. We have several boards that are outstanding and doing amazing work for our programs and for our kids, but we have to recognize that we do have some boards that aren't performing at a high level, and we must focus on them and their members to be engaged and support them for the success of the program. Next, I will work with Mike and his team to bring the current strategic plan in for a landing. As you heard from Mike earlier, the current 5-year plan will be ending during my first year, and I will continue to work with the board and staff to ensure we close out that strategic plan strong. Lastly, and maybe most importantly, we'll be putting our next strategic plan in place. This opportunity will begin during my second year, will begin during my first, but take place during my second year as chair. These strategic plans have the opportunity to shape our organization, and I look forward to working with our board members, our staff, our students, and our supporters on this important plan. So finally, I want to thank each of you for your dedication to AMIkids, and I look forward to working with you over the next 2 years. And next, I will introduce the new executive committee members joining the board. So first, we have Corey Lee, who will be the chair of the Human Resource Committee. Next, we have Laura Branch, who will be taking over as chair of the Community and Resource Development Committee. That's a great committee. Next, we have Chief United States District Judge William Johnson, who will be chairing the PEDC committee. And then finally, Mark Matheny, who is the chair of the AMIkids Foundation. So next, now I will call for a motion to ratify the actions of the AMIkids Executive Committee during the year. We will use the same pop-up technology that you all used earlier. Do I have a motion? I see a motion by Brad and a second by Nick. The motion was seconded by Nick, and the voting is unanimous in the affirmative. Motion has passed. Next, I will turn it over to Mike Thornton for closing remarks.
Thank you, Justin. We are obviously excited to have Justin, who's a longtime board member from here in the Tampa area, to be our new incoming chair. But I would have to say a few words about Jerry Prejean before we talk about, the change. Jerry did come in at a very tough time. I mean, we talked about, we had a plan on visiting programs and how we're going to do it, and then the pandemic hit. But he's been a trooper throughout, been a sounding board, has really helped us with some of the COVID initiatives that we had to address some serious issues and kept it on the forefront. I asked some very critical questions to challenge us to make sure that we were doing everything we possibly could to protect our staff and protect our kids. And I really appreciate his leadership through this time. Jerry is a banker by trade. During this period of time, he got a promotion, and he still never missed a beat as far as his support. As a part of the duties of the chair, I communicate with them on a weekly basis, and so any good news or bad news that I get, they get. And so he's been a trooper throughout. I appreciate his guidance throughout this last 2 years and his commitment, and he's going to remain on the executive committee and actually is going to be taking on some new roles going forward. So thanks, Jerry, for all that you've done to help the organization. And I just wanted to say, how much I appreciate that. Some members that are transitioning because of term limits off the executive committee, I wanted to recognize them and their commitment. We have Brenda Burkett, who is a past chair. It was my first chair when I first took over as CEO, and a member of our audit committee. We hope that she continues to be a member of our audit committee, and her guidance has always been good, and she is another person that I call when I have questions or need guidance, and sometimes she calls me when she feels like I need guidance. So we really appreciate Brenda and her commitment to the organization. Sheriff Mike Newstrom. Mike Newstrom is a past chair, and as he gave his report, he's the chair of the Program Evaluation and Development Committee. And Sheriff has been involved with the organization for a long time. He has played some pivotal roles in starting new programs, including his home program in Acadiana, Louisiana. Just thank him for his wisdom and mentorship, and I will continue to call on him. Mark Kreiser joined the board when I was at Tampa as a executive director. Mark has been he's the past chair, but is also the foundation board chair. And a lot of success we had over the last few years with the foundation is directly attributed to Mark's leadership. And we really appreciate him. He's still going to remain a member of the foundation board, but Mark Matheny is taking over as chair. But we wish Mark the absolute best, and we'll try to find different things to keep him involved with. Amy Detrich, who is a member of the Sandoval board, but was our chair of our audit committee. Amy has been very committed dealing with this transition with our IT project and the things with the audits and the changes in rules with the audit, and explaining that in a very specific way to the body of the board. And we really appreciate her leadership. And I told her that next time I go to New Mexico, which will be soon, I owe her dinner. So I'm good. She's going to hold me to that. But we really appreciate Amy, and we hope that she stays involved with the organization on the audit committee or the finance committee. And Charlie Noonan, who's from our Emerald Coast program that was brought up earlier. Charlie was an at-large member. He's completed his term, and we really wish him the absolute best and continue doing great work with Emerald Coast. They did lose their primary contract, and he has been doing a lot of things to help them continue on by getting additional funding from the community. So I just want to thank all of these board members that served on the executive committee, and we definitely going to miss you guys on the executive committee, but thank you for your service. And as far as Justin, he and I are, have already talked about his goals. They're definitely in line with what we're focusing on, this next 2 years, and so we're really excited to have him as our leader. So thank you, Justin. And I'm turning it over to Miss Tabitha for some additional information. Tabitha Burton is my executive assistant, and she will give us some good information.
Good afternoon. As Mike mentioned, for those of you who are not familiar with me, I am Tabitha Burton, Mike Thornton's executive assistant. And I just wanted to take the time to thank everyone that made today happen. Even though we are virtual, it still takes a village. So starting off with our IT director and his team, Mr. Richard Hilton and Fred St. Louis. We have our chat moderators, Miss Lizette Navarro, Jackie Tatum, and Stephanie Garcia. Our marketing team, led by marketing director Joseph Galena, his team, Brandon Mosby and George Cannon. And we have Miss Rebecca Corrigan, who took the lead with all of our student speakers that will be presented later at the award ceremony at 1 o'clock. Along with our leadership team that is led by Mr. Mike Thornton. We have Ms. Roseberry Brackman, Ms. Maria Porte Duarte, Mr. Brian Lepesky, Ms. New Angie Hastings, and of course, Mr. Hayward Golden. And we just want to thank everyone for joining us today, and we hope to see you at 1 o'clock during our award ceremony. You should have received a separate Microsoft Teams link for that. If you have not, just let us know in the chat box, and we will add that into the chat. Thank you, everybody.